Good morning. Good morning. Thank you for joining us for today's workshop, Resume Writing. My name is Shantae Rivers. I am the Senior Relationship Manager for the Towson University Continuing and Professional Studies team. I'm thrilled to partner with the Towson University Career Center today. Shortly, I will introduce to you Leah Fondersmith. But before I do, I wanted to tell you a little bit about what we offer at Towson University Continuing and Professional Studies. Many of you on this call today may be familiar with some of our offerings, so I won't take up too much of your time. We offer live instructor-led courses, as well as self-paced options that offer flexible learning and can fit into many schedules. Every course we offer is designed to help you meet your career goals. Our team provides 360 support, and that pretty much means everything from helping you select the right course to adding to your learning management system once you get started with the course, and ensuring you receive the materials and checking in on you when you get started with the course. You are fully supported once you become a CPS student. Many of our students are eligible for discounts. Right now, our instructor-led courses starting in March are eligible for a 20% discount. These courses include project management, professional and human resources, CompTIA A+, Network Plus, and Security Plus, as well as our certified medical coding course. Feel free to reach out to me, excuse me. Feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions. My email is crivers, and that's CRIVERS @towson.edu. I would be happy to answer any questions and discuss your career goals. Without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Leah at the Career Center for her to get started. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. Good morning. Happy Wednesday. My name is Leah Fondersmith. I'm looking forward to presenting to y'all information on how to write effective resumes. Bear with me as I start sharing my screen here, and we will go ahead and get started. All right. So this is going to be a really kind of brief introduction into resumes, and we're going to talk about how to tailor those to job postings and job descriptions, the overall format, each different section of a resume. And we do have some handouts to be shared with you all after the presentation and some time for Q&As. All right, so to get started, when you're writing a resume, it's really important that you are tailoring it to the job that you are applying to. So what we recommend is that you print out the job description or the job posting for the job. I like to print it out and then get a highlighter and highlight qualifications on that job posting that you possess. Usually it's broken up into a section where it talks about the company, the responsibilities for the job, the qualifications, and the preferred qualifications. So within each section, you're going to highlight the qualifications that you possess, as well as the activities and duties and the responsibility sections that you have experience with or knowledge of. You kind of want to think about things you've done before or been exposed to in any part of your life. It does not have to be work experience. It could be volunteer, unpaid experiences as well. Oftentimes they include a list of skills that they're looking for. So you want to highlight the key skills that you possess as well. And also just what really excites you about the job. If you find that you're really excited about certain aspects, I like to highlight those in pink to symbolize, okay, this is something that's drawing me to this position. And oftentimes you'll find in the cover letter or the interview, you want to expand on this. So it's good to be able to come back to it. The next thing you're going to want to do is take note of the application instructions. Are you required to submit your cover letter and your resume in one document? Are you required to email and upload your application? A lot of times recruiters include different steps to the application process to weed out potential candidates who aren't actually following directions. This is a really important step of the process. All right, so you're starting to work on your resume. Very first thing you want to do is take inventory of what you have to offer. So this can include education, high school, associate's degrees, certifications, bachelor's degrees, master's, and then your experiences. And again, I mentioned this, but experience is not just paid experience. It could be work, previous internships or volunteer experience, leadership roles in the community, accomplishments that you've made, being employee of the month, saving a company time or money, and then also skills and strengths that lend themselves to that specific employer's success. So as you're taking inventory of what you have to offer, if you're finding, I don't really have a lot of relevant experiences to this position, when you think about those experiences, more than likely you have skills that you've gained that are in demand for that job that you're applying to. So really make sure you're including in your resume those skills that you've gained from those previous positions. We like to call those transferable skills. You also want to keep in mind who they are. So research the company before you submit your application. And it's important to know what's their overall mission, vision, their values, what's their goal as an organization. And you're going to want to use this information to tailor your resume and your cover letter. Today we're talking about resumes. But essentially, for example, let's say an organization donates a certain amount of their proceeds to a nonprofit organization or charity. Maybe you've had to work with that charity or in that kind of realm that they're donating to. It's a good idea to include that experience on your resume because that shows that you share similar values. So format. Ideally, your resume is going to be one page. On the Towson University website, we do have a list, a very extensive list of sample resumes, and I will be sharing with you after the presentation today some examples of sample resumes. But the format, you want to keep it to one page. It doesn't need to be longer than that because you want to keep it to relevant information. It does not need to be an exhaustive list of everything you've done, more so a highlight reel of what the employer is probably going to be most interested in. Now, if you do find that you have a lot of relevant experience, that's great. And it can lead on to a second page, depending on what stage of your life you're in and how much related experience you have. But if you have a bunch of related experience and you are going onto that second page, just make sure that you're being strategic and using up at least 1/3 of that second page. You don't want to have just 1 or 2 lines. You want to be creative and effective in the use of bold and italics. So bolding, job titles, bolding section headings, using italics when necessary, and that's going to draw the reader's eye to the information that is most important. So recruiters or HR professionals, when they're reviewing resumes, they could be reviewing tons of different resumes. They actually scan them for about 7 to 10 seconds before deciding whether or not this candidate is someone worth reviewing further. So that's why bold and italics is very important, as well as strategic section headings. So you may have heard of the familiar ones, and we're going to go through each one of these sections today, but education, and then your experiences, which is really important. Experiences, you don't have to just write work experience or professional experience, but instead be more creative and use words like leadership experience if the role you're applying to requires a leader, or marketing experience, relevant experience, and break it up that way. So the very first thing on your resume is going to be your heading. Now your heading is going to include your name. You don't want to use a non-professional nickname. So it'll be your first and last name. And that's going to be the biggest thing on your resume is your name. And I would have that about 18-point font in a nice big bold letters. Next, you'll include your address or your city and state. City and state is sufficient. You don't need to include your street address, especially if you plan on posting your resume on public job boards. It could be a safety issue to include where you live along with your name. Your telephone number, and then your email. Your email should be professional. First and last name with a couple numbers at gmail.com is a good rule of thumb. Or if you're Towson University student or any other student, your student edu address. However, we do recommend that if you're applying to jobs, your senior year of education, that you transition to your professional email address as you don't have access to that account forever. And then you can also include a website address or portfolio link if you're like in a creative industry. or your LinkedIn profile. Just keep in mind, make sure your voicemail message and inbox is not full. You have a nice professional outgoing voicemail, and that you're checking those often once you start submitting applications. So here are some examples of headings. As you can see, Chris Bloom, we have one with a street address, one without. Their name is nice, big, and bold in the first one. You can Google attractive headers and kind of use them as inspiration for your own resume. We never recommend creating a resume in a template, however. Templates can be really difficult to edit your resume as there's like space restrictions. So you can look at templates as inspiration, but you're going to want to start with a Microsoft Word document and just start from scratch. This is an example including a portfolio website and a linked or where you could put like your LinkedIn profile, as well as including your nickname. So they have their professional, like their given name, which is Charles Kelly, and then in parentheses, the name they prefer to be gone by. Okay. The next section is education and training. So you will want to put your most recent or current education first, and then work your way backwards. You'll include your degree, your major, minor, and concentration. If you are currently attending school, like you're pursuing a Bachelor of Science and you haven't graduated yet, you will still want to put the name of the degree that you're pursuing. So whether it's a certificate, an associate's, a bachelor's, put the name of the education you're planning to graduate with, and then you'll put the graduation month and year. So if you will be graduating in May 2022, you'll just write May 2022. You do not need to use the words expected or anticipated. Because the dates are in the future, it's assumed that it's expected and anticipated. You'll also include the college and the location, city and state. And if you have a GPA above a 3.0 or any academic achievements like scholarships, honors college, those are really important things to put on there as well. No high school is required if you have a degree, but you can include high school if you do not have a degree. So here's an example of what that would look like. So you have your major, minor, college, and then on the right are the dates. And that's going to be consistent throughout your resume. You will justify all of your dates with month and year. That just makes it easy for people to scan when they're looking at the resume. And here's another example with a little bit more education information. So they have study abroad on there. They attended another university before they got their bachelor's degree, and they did not graduate from that university. Now, the rule of thumb, if you did not graduate from the university, you're not supposed to put it on there unless you really feel like you had coursework that was super relevant. If you got like an associate's degree, then it would be important to put that on there. Okay, so related coursework is really important information. If you don't have any relevant experience and you want to have information on there, you can include course titles under your education section, or you can have a completely different section that says related coursework, and then you can write the course title and a description of the class projects and learning outcomes with the semester that you took the course. And here's just an example of what that might look like. Okay, so experience. This is the most important part of the resume, and this is really what the employers and the recruiters care about. It is related experience and other experience that, again, it does not have to be paid. So it's full-time jobs, part-time jobs, internships, military, volunteer or community service. And for each experience that you have, as you're reflecting on these experiences, you're going to write down your job title at that position, the company name, the location, city and state is fine, and your beginning month and year, along with your ending month and year. If it is something that you are still currently doing, you will use the word present. So let's say you started September 2016 through present. Under each experience, you'll write bullet points. So you'll start each with an action verb. And you will use past tense for positions that you've had in the past and present tense for positions you are currently doing. And I will share in the next couple slides some examples of what this section might look like. And I am going to provide a handout at the conclusion of this presentation with an extensive list of power verbs and more creative verbs. So you're not leaning into those same words like manage, draft, create. So you can be a little bit more effective in the verbs that you're choosing. Each bullet point will be results oriented and quantifiable. So you really want to focus on the accomplishments within that position instead of just your responsibilities and what you did. An example would be, let's say you work for an organization where you manage their social media accounts. Instead of writing manage social media accounts, you would transition that into craft 10 weekly Twitter posts that increase consumer engagement by 30%. You're adding numbers, and it really helps paint the picture. You don't want to include periods on your bullet points or use the first person. And again, you will scan that job posting and when applicable, try to use keywords that you're finding within that posting in your own experiences. So as you're reflecting on your experiences that you've had, these are the types of things that you can ask yourself. Write down everything you've done, come up with some quantifiable examples like I mentioned, and that could be how often you do something, how many people you worked with, how many times you did it, was it weekly, bi-weekly, groups, individual, one-on-one, did you save the company time, money, could be dollar amounts, percentage, no kind of surface level. You really want to dive deep. And those are some questions you can ask yourself. So here's an example. And I wanted to share this because it also provides what you could format your resume in if you've had a couple different positions within one organization. So here they wrote public relations coordinator / publications editor. And this is something they're currently doing as they're using the word present. And they start each bullet point with a verb. Again, they're not using creating or serving or producing. It's create, serve, produce. There's no bullet points. However, one thing they could do better here is use numbers. For example, in this position here, this is something they did in the past. You can see expanded, reorganized, recognized. However, they could improve this by including increased sales by what percentage, by how much money. They were a top upseller against how many people? Is this a large nationwide? Is this just the store? Increased revenues by what amount? So really the numbers add a lot of value when you're constructing your resume. Now this is an optional section. You do not need this section on your resume if you have a lot of experience and you are, having a hard time finding space. It's okay to leave this out. However, if you have skills that you'd like to include, they should be relevant to the targeted position and include your proficiency level. If you are familiar with Excel, for example, but you only really have beginner or intermediate knowledge, you're going to want to notate that, especially with foreign languages. Myself, I took Spanish. I know very casual conversation, beginner level Spanish. If I really wanted to put that on my resume, I would have to say beginner proficiency. So you could write beginner, intermediate. If you are bilingual, you can write bilingual and then include the languages. And then technical. So here's some examples of what that might look like on your resume. So for language skills, you can see it says fluent in English and French. And they have it broken up by different areas. For the social media skills, you will not be putting social media on your resume if you use those accounts for your own personal pleasure. If it is something you've done for an organization, whether it's volunteering, you're working with the local SPCA and you volunteer as a social media manager, then yes, you can put that on there, but you're not going to put it on if you just do it for your own accounts. Other useful content to consider are volunteer community service, athletic, leadership, awards and recognition, any professional development organizations that you've joined. whether it be memberships or you've earned a certification, a license, or presented at a conference, or even attended a conference, along with a portfolio. And a portfolio is really very specific depending on the industry. It's very popular, in the technical or creative fields. So here's an example of volunteer experience. And again, this shows another way that you can include multiple positions at one organization. So this person worked for Habitat for Humanity and had a couple different positions. They broke it up into 2 areas. So if you are trying to draw your resume out and add more, content, this is something you could do in a format you could use. So your final considerations when you're making your resume: triple check spelling, grammar, and punctuation. You're going to want to be consistent with, your bold, your italics, your punctuation and abbreviations, and make sure you're not lying, you're honest and verifiable in your information. The purpose of a resume is to get an interview. It's not to get the job. So really, you just want to make sure you're communicating that you are a good fit and you have the skills for this position. And then you can expand upon those once you go to get the interview. They should be tailored to each specific job description and use effective section headings. Now, the final note here, saved with an appropriate title. This is really important. You don't want to use your name resume with a bunch of numbers like final draft. And you also want to, use your first and last name underscore, and then the name of the organization that you're applying to, since it's tailored, so you can show you're not sending the wrong resume. And with that, I'm going to skip through this stuff because I think we're running close on time. Is that right? All right.
Yeah. Sorry, Leah. I think you have at least about, from my schedule, about at least 3 or 4 more minutes before we get to Q&A.
Great. So let's discuss references. So references do not go on the resume. A lot of times folks will put references available upon request. You do not need that line on your resume. Instead, what you should be doing is having a separate page for your references. Now, who to ask when you're thinking about generating a list of references? It needs to be someone that you know well. You don't want to use family or friends, but instead someone that can give you a good professional recommendation. And this includes previous coworkers, current coworkers, current supervisors or former supervisors. It could be academic advisors at college, or associates from community activities. So it's important that you are asking each individual for permission. And then you also want to make sure when you ask, will you be a positive reference for me? You don't want to assume that they're going to provide you with a positive reference, but instead use language like, I am applying for a job with Morgan Stanley for the XYZ position. Would you be able to give me a positive reference? And if they say yes, wonderful. What you should do is then send them a copy of your current resume, a copy of the job description, and confirm their information. So confirm their best phone number and best email address, and you'll include that information on the reference page. So you'll include their name, their title, how you know them, their phone number, and their email address. Keep them informed throughout the process. So if you get an interview and you're told that you will be, they'll be reaching out to references within the next couple of days or within the next week, then tell your reference that, hey, just had an interview. I'll be getting references should be hearing out soon. So be informed and look out for a phone call from a number you don't know. Say thank you. Writing a nice thank you note or an email is good practice. And then stay in touch. You don't want to use them and lose them. So if it's somebody that's being, willing to be a reference for you, just keep that communication going and stay in touch. And with that, thank you so much. If you guys have any questions, we'll go ahead and open it up to that, and I'll turn it over to Shante Rivers.
Thank you, Leah. That was a great presentation. Thank you so much. Great information. Okay, we have a few minutes. We did have one question that came through. Wanted to know, are we going to send this PowerPoint?
I can. I'd be happy to share the PowerPoint if folks would find that beneficial.
Okay.
I can definitely send that along. We do have some handouts that I think are good reference points that you can explore after the presentation.
Okay, great. And we are also going to, like Leah said, I think she mentioned earlier, we're going to have some tips, some PDFs that we're going to send as well. So yeah, I will get that out to all of the attendees. That was the only question that I saw come through, but we can open it up. If anybody have any questions, feel free to ask them now. We do have a few more minutes before we have to wrap it up. And if you don't have any right now and you think of some later, you can always email me again at crivers, and that's CRIVERS at towson.edu. All right. Well, thank you again, Leah, for the presentation. Thank you to all who logged in today. As a reminder, we have another workshop tomorrow about LinkedIn. If you have not registered, you can email me. I think my contact information is up again, crivers at towson.edu, and I will be happy to assist you and get you on the list. All right. Leah, do you have anything else?
No, thank you so much for having me. And if you do have any questions, again, our information is on that PowerPoint. We'll go ahead and send that out. Feel free to shoot me an email at lfondersmith@towson.edu.
Awesome. Thank you so much. All right, everyone, have a great day.